7 practical steps to live below your means, build a financial margin, and achieve financial independence. Hello and welcome. This is Dr. Obed. Here we talk about personal finance and wealth building. So today we are going to be talking about how to practically live below your means. Now, in this channel, we've said a lot about living below your means. We've said that in order for you to build wealth and achieve financial independence, you will need to live below your means. So living below your means is a tool of wealth building that is very vital. If you are able to live below your means, it means you are spending less than you earn. You then have a financial margin. It is with that margin that you now invest, accumulate, and subsequently build wealth over time. So then, how do you practically live below your means? 7 strategies. Number 1 is to know your income. Now, this is very important, particularly for persons who do not have just one source of income, which is their salary. If you have your salary as your only income source, it's very easy for you to know how much you earn monthly. But for some persons who are either they are self-employed, they have a business they are running, so their income comes in as profits, or maybe they are into freelancing, so their income is not fixed. It's important for you to know how much you are making, or at least the average of what comes in every month, because it is this figure you will use to plan your expenses for that month. It goes without saying that if we are talking about spending less than your income, you should know what that your income is. So as much as possible, if it requires you to know your numbers as a business person, what exactly is your profit every month, and how much of that profit you are taking, and how much of it you are reinvesting into your business, because of course you need to reinvest into the business to ensure that it is growing. So know your income if you want to live below your means. For a freelancer, you may need to take an average of a few months in order for you to get a figure that will help you manage your expenses going forward. And the second strategy is to know and track your expenses. You know what comes in. It's important to know what goes out. And the best way to know and track your expenses is, of course, budgeting. So you need to have a budget every month of how much you should be spending and in what. A budget is like sending your money on an errand. Specifically, this is what I want you to do this month. If you are not able to have a budget, you will always end up spending on things that you are not supposed to. But if you have a budget, you are deciding exactly where your money is going to, rather than asking every month where your money went to. Not just having a budget, but also tracking your spending to actually ensure that you are not spending way outside of your budget. It's very vital. If you are someone who is interested in living below your means and building wealth through that, having a budget and tracking your expenses is extremely important. Now, the third step is to build an emergency fund. Now, an emergency fund is money like 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses saved up somewhere that is easily accessible for, as the name implies, emergencies. Because financial emergencies can happen at any time. Maybe a sudden reduction in your income, maybe a sudden issue with your car, a sudden job loss of maybe your phone or an appliance that you need to quickly sort out and continue with your life. These things can derail your financial journey if they are not sorted quickly, or even a health crisis. But if you have an emergency fund, it ensures that you are always on track. If any unforeseen circumstance occurs, you can quickly sort that out without it affecting your investment or causing you to go into debt, because without an emergency fund, in cases of a financial emergency, you may be forced to borrow or to liquidate your investment. So it's important, as someone who wants to build wealth through living below your means, to have an emergency fund. It gives you a cushion against any of such life's eventualities. Now, the fourth strategy is to focus on your big expenses. Now, this is where you talk about reducing your expenses and ensuring that you live below your means. Now, the best way to practically reduce the amount of money you spend monthly is to focus on the biggest expenses you make every month as against the smaller expenses. Take for example, for most persons, rent and feeding are the biggest expenses they make, transportation also, and then some utilities, as against maybe shaving, as against snacks and some other expenses they make. Usually, if people talk about reducing their expenses, their mind first goes to the little expenses that they can easily remove from their budget. But the truth is, even though those ones can affect your finances, but a little reduction in those your major expenses affects your finances even bigger. For example, in Nigeria, there's a statistic that most Nigerians spend up to 50% of all their income on food alone. So imagine, for someone who spends 50% of his income on food, finding a way to reduce the amount he spends on food, even if it means maybe buying in bulk, maybe cooking at home rather than eating out, finding a way to buy some of the foodstuffs cheaper. These are opportunities that will drastically reduce your major expenses. So it's important to sit down, look at the major expenses that you make every month, and find a way to get a reduction, a discount in each of them. It will affect your finances way bigger. It's a much better use of your time to focus on those bigger expenses and get a reduction in it than on little expenses. Now, the fifth step is to forget what people would say. Now, for someone who wants to live below your means, it may require you to wear clothes that are somehow below what you can afford, or drive cars that are below, or live in houses that are below your current level. What it means is that for persons who know what you actually earn, they may want to make caricature of you if care is not taken. So if you are someone who takes what people say to heart, it may make you want to spend even way more than you earn. If you are someone who wants to build wealth by living below your means, it's important that you save your heart from what people would say, because people will always say, people will prefer that you spend everything you have and even go broke than that you are spending less and have a lot of money saved up and of course in financial security. Don't be that person who spends to keep up with the Joneses, the person who wants to impress other people with what they wear or what they drive or where they live. Don't be that person who wants to be like your classmates or your neighbors. Maybe you want to drive the same kind of car they drive, and because of that you are spending way more than you can afford. For someone who wants to live below their means, it may require that you look poorer than you actually are, and it's totally fine, especially at the period where you are building. You realize that for most wealthy people, if they have an expensive item or a luxury car, for example, it's because they can actually afford tons of that luxury car Do not try to also drive that car, you that cannot even afford one of it, that you will need loan to buy it. So try to reduce your appetite for pleasing other people and ensure that whatever you are buying, you actually do need it and you want it, and it's not because somebody else has it and you want to be like that other person, or that you want to impress other people. Spend for yourself and not to impress others. Now, the sixth step for living below your means is to pay off debt and stay away from debt. You see, debt is one thing that keeps a lot of persons poor, especially consumer debt, that is borrowing to spend on things that do not go up in value. You see, the thing about wealth building is compound interest. It can make you extremely rich, and at the same time it can make you poor if you stay at the worst end of it, that is if you are in debt. Some persons may say that rich people also borrow, and they borrow to make more money, but what they forget to add is that most rich people, they borrow against their assets. They already have assets that are worth way more than the amount they are borrowing, and for that reason the bank or the lending institution gives them this money at very low interest rates. But for you who is still struggling financially with very poor credit rating, the lending institution sees you as a huge risk. So even if you are getting loans, you are getting them at very high interest rates, and so you keep borrowing and spending all your money to pay off debt month after month. Debt is the single largest expense of most persons, and these are not business debts or debts on income producing assets. These are debts on things that depreciate in value, debts that they have already consumed. If you do not find a way to pay off all your debt and to stay away from debt, debt can keep you struggling financially for many years to come. So as soon as possible, you need to pay off all the debt you have and try to stay away from consumer debt. If you are borrowing, let it be to buy or invest in income producing assets or businesses that are already tried and tested. You should do your due diligence and be very sure that whatever you are borrowing for has the capacity to more than pay for that debt, including the interest. If not, even if you call it a business debt, it can also wipe you out financially, like most people have discovered. So do not joke around with debt. Pay off all the debts you have and do not borrow indiscriminately, else you will be burnt financially. As someone who is trying to live below your means, do not add monthly debt to the expenses that you will have to pay every month, especially consumer debts with very high interest rates. Now, the seventh step to live below your means is to invest the difference. Now, it's very important that if you found a way to spend less than you earn, if you are living below your means and making all these sacrifices, that you invest that margin, that difference that is left after all your spendings, that you do not waste all that money. Because what is the point delaying immediate gratification only to spend that money on things that are not worth the sacrifice in the first place? So you have to find a way to invest the difference. Learn about investing, all the different types of investing. Invest in only what you know a lot about. Learn about real estate investing, things like lands, rental properties, commercial real estates, and different types of assets. Then also learn about paper assets, shares and bonds, treasury bills, index funds, mutual funds, commercial papers, fixed deposits instruments, and the different types of paper assets. Learn about them, know how to invest your money. That is how you will build wealth eventually if you are someone who lives below your means. There is absolutely no point in living below your means and delay yourself of all that initial pleasure only for the money to be spent irrationally on things that is not worth the sacrifice. Invest properly. Do not lose your money in investment schemes that are scammy. Do not be greedy. Learn about investing. Invest in things that have the potential to increase your wealth as well as that are secure. Invest properly, build wealth over time, and you will achieve financial independence. That is it on the 7 steps to live below your means, build financial margin, and subsequently build wealth and achieve financial independence. If you did like this video, please do subscribe to this channel and check out this next video for your viewing pleasure. See you in the next video.